my mind, one of the biggest, worst decisions was allowing this brokerage migration to take place, which is on both Synapse and Evolve, right?
Yeah.
Allowing that migration to take place when it would seem that everyone knew the records were not accurate and reliable and that there was a shortfall. Because that has really compounded the difficulty of trying to unwind this situation and understand what happened.
Exactly. Why would you shuffle everyone's money around to different banks if you hadn't sorted out where everyone's money was in the first place? This is the first question I brought to Evolve, the question of the shortfall. Evolve's position appears to be, oh, there's no shortfall of funds at Evolve, but that can't be true based on their September 2023 correspondence. They're the ones who said you didn't fully fund the account. There had to be a shortfall. Now, how big exactly it was is a little trickier to figure out. Not that I haven't tried. Remember, I do have a bunch of internal banking records from thousands of customers, which, by the way, I can't believe they didn't make me sign an NDA for or redact in any way, which I thought was incredibly irresponsible. Either way, essentially, I looked through everybody's, bank records. It was monthly statements for Synapse's customers going back literally years at Evolve. And I used a couple of scripts to turn these PDFs into a database and queried it for certain fees. Now, I was able to reproduce some of Synapse's claims. It does appear true that Evolve seems to be charging a bunch of fees to customers' accounts that they really shouldn't have. And it does go back years. Let me repeat that because it's really important. Customers were being charged improper fees directly from their accounts that should not have been there. And to my understanding, those fees have never been repaid. Why didn't Synapse address this sooner? I don't know. It seems like they brought it up only in 2023 when this has been happening for like several years. I can't figure that out. But Evolve's position seems to be much harder to explain. They say that some of these fees were owed by Synapse. That was part of their master agreement. But I got a copy of that agreement, and it seems like those fees were put in place later. I don't. It's very confusing. But the point is, did the customers ever get their money back? I asked Evolve about this in an email and was sent Evolve's lawsuit with Yada. In it, they kind of appeared to admit in the lawsuit that there were improper fees, but maybe it was an administrative mistake. And specifically that might be made up for by this reserve account, which they funded mostly using Synapse's money. Which I think is funny. Quote, Evolve transferring over $35 million from the reserve to customer accounts. Later, they state they had up to $43 million in a reserve account by the end of 2023. It's worth emphasizing that while Evolve says there was never a shortfall, and even if there was, they had it covered, the reason Synapse went bankrupt is kind of because of the shortfall. According to the Wall Street Journal, Synapse tried to sell itself and neared a deal with TabaPay.